Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. Ezell's Famous Chicken is a decades-old Seattle institution. It's also family-run, but its next chapter might look a little different. Nationwide expansion steered from outside of the family. We'll talk about it with owner Louis Rudd and reporter Egan Ward in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. Students, put those phones away. Beginning today, Seattle Public Schools is implementing stricter rules for using phones at school. Students in 8th grade and below will have their phones turned off and put away for the entire school day. High schoolers will be required to put their phones away during class, but will be allowed to use them at lunch and during passing periods. This is the first time the district has implemented a district-wide phone policy for students. Candidate filing week begins today for this year's elections. That means if you want to run for public office in Washington, including Congress, you need to register by this Friday. All 10 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives are up for election, as well as 120 seats in the Washington State Legislature. On the City Council, only District 5 in North Seattle is up for election. This after Kathy Moore resigned from the council last summer. 6 days a week, Seattle Now keeps you up to date. We are powered by an entire newsroom of local journalists following stories across the Puget Sound region. Everything you hear on Seattle Now and KUOW relies on the support of our community. This May, join KUOW in amplifying the impact of public media, celebrating Give Big with us. We're inviting you to join KUOW as a donor to power this podcast. Together, you'll support a thriving future for local public media. All you have to do is tap the link in our show notes or visit KUOW.org to make a gift. And thank you from the entire Seattle Now team. We're back with more headlines on tonight's episode. Full disclosure, I love fried chicken, and Ezell's Famous Chicken was part of my family's Christmas Eve dinner for years. Ezell's has been a Seattle staple since 1984, but according to co-founder and CEO Louis Rudd, the vision started back in Texas.
So, two childhood friends growing up in East Texas would get a job working at a place called Brown's Fried Chicken. And the namesake, Ezell Stevens, began to talk about one day having his own chicken place. And I bought into the dream later. He migrated out to Seattle, still pursuing the dream.
Now, after more than 40 years, Louis Rudd is looking to retire. He recently shared his vision for his successor and the future of Ezell's with Puget Sound Business Journal reporter Egan Ward. Egan is here to talk about where Ezell's is now and what might come next. Thanks for coming in, Egan.
Happy to be here.
Good to see you. So, Ezell's Famous Chicken, very well known in these parts. But before we talk about the future, let's give listeners a quick sketch of the business today.
So the business today is 16 locations throughout Washington, one in Oregon. Obviously, they've got a number in different neighborhoods. They've still got their flagship in the Central District. And in 2013, they started franchising. So now 12 of the 16 in Washington are franchised. So there's been sort of debates publicly about, whether that's changed the quality, whether that's kind of kept things the same. Argue as you may, that is sort of the landscape they're dealing with at the moment.
Okay. Louis Rudd is the CEO of Ezell's. What did he tell you about his vision for the future of the company?
Well, Louis told me his vision from the start was always for this to be a national business.
We used to joke about having an Ezell spicy chicken breast available anywhere you can get a Big Mac,
As well as many business owners out there want their product, which they love, to be shared with the masses. So right now where he wants is national expansion, naturally. But he's in his early 70s, so he doesn't necessarily find himself as the one to do it and is sort of looking for a partner, a successor, somebody to take over and essentially fulfill that vision.
It sounds like after 40 years, Ezell's is considering the fact that it may no longer be a family business.
That's exactly right. I actually don't think it will be. at least in hearing the conversations. And I don't think Louis thinks that way either. I asked him point blank whether he's going to give this over to his children, who obviously have been around, at least seeing the business their whole lives. And his answer was flat out no.
That person that's going to take over the CEO role and be able to scale this and grow this to the next level, I don't anticipate a family member being in that position. In fact, I've talked to all my family members, and they all understand and share what I believe to be the facts today.
And the main reason is, they grew up around sort of the struggle times when the business was first getting off the ground, when things were difficult, when there was high stress, financial strain. So they just kind of had those negative memories. And, for them, they have no interest. And I don't think he wants to push it on them.
That's really interesting because famously, Ezell's has had trouble in the past with family. Heaven Sent, which is a rival chicken chain, splintered off from Ezell's back in 2011 because of a divorce.
It certainly
factors into his children's thinking.
Absolutely. It's a reason that their business has sort of moved away from that family aspect. And I mean, he describes it very well. It can be a great thing to run a family business, but it can also really divide the family in a lot of ways and just cause a lot of rifts. And obviously, that's publicly been the case with Ezell's.
There are always going to be lots of emotions, and a lot of times decisions are made with emotional feelings attached or not made due to emotions.
And maybe it's a reason that they're pushing sort of to get out of the family aspect.
What is Louis Rudd looking for in his successor? Did he say anything about that?
So Louis is kind of looking at it from sort of this two-pronged sort of options here. One, a sort of restaurant operator, someone who's got other restaurants in their portfolio and they could add Ezell's into it. Another option is sort of a financial injection, someone who can add capital. I asked him point blank whether private equity is an option, and he said yes, that he's talked to several private equity folks already. Private equity obviously has a sort of negative perception, but I mean, it is a viable financial option, and I think he's at the point now where he's sort of looking at all the different options and eventually finding the right partner.
It makes me wonder why Ezell's hasn't gone nationwide yet after all this time.
That is a great question, and I think it's, at least from the outside looking in, I think it's a number of different reasons. First and foremost, in talking to Louis, he has said in the past that sort of other investors have told him that his team does not have the bandwidth nor the specialized skill set to take the brand to a national scale. Now, they have pushed into Oregon with the one Oregon location, and around 2019, 2020, they were pretty close to being locked in for a Portland multi-unit deal in the Portland area. That fell through when the pandemic came and restaurants became more of an unattractive investment than they already were. Now I think it's, like I said, he's getting to sort of an older age. He wants this vision fulfilled, which I think is very fair. But I think he's sort of almost accepted the fact that he may not be the one to do it.
What do you know about the difference for a restaurant between being like a local chain versus a national chain? What are the elements in there?
One of my favorite anecdotes that I continue to come back to, the hardest thing is not to go from 1 to 2. The hardest is to go to that third, where it's, okay, even incrementally, we're starting to spread a little bit thin. If you are expanding within, let's say, Seattle, much easier to just talk to managers or have your owners drive from one location to the next. If something is missing at one, it's easier to transfer over. And I think for Ezell's, even though they do have 17 locations, they're not a huge multinational operation. You know, they don't have operations super duper streamlined.
And they probably operate at a margin that is thinner than, say, maybe a national chain might.
Absolutely. And they're also in a hyper-competitive market of selling chicken.
Yeah. We've been talking a lot about business, but at the heart of this is a chicken spot here. What did Louis Rudd say to you about the food at the heart of the company and his vision for the future?
Well, of course, the food is the heart of the company, as we all know. And I think that it is still super important to him, and you can even tell the passion that he has for it as we're talking. We actually kind of broke bread and ate the chicken. And he's talking to me about, this is the recipe that they've been using since before he even started Ezell's, just kind of working odd jobs back in Texas. And it's a pride point for them.
Ezell's had a point in the 80s when Oprah Winfrey had it flown out to her, right, in Chicago. That was a big moment for the company that probably propelled them to the next level. But as we're talking here, he's been told he does not have what it takes to take this company national at this point. What's missing and what does it take to elevate like a local brand like Ezell's to nationwide success in 2026?
What it takes, frankly, is capital. You need the capital to expand. If you're going to invest in sort of a brick and mortar business these days, whether it's food, retail, or anything in between, what you need is to be able to pay those upfront costs, opportunity costs, if you will. And frankly, real estate is quite expensive. Now, you also need a diverse and strong management team. And ideally, you need a management team that already has experience with juggling several brands in several different locations. He's sort of dabbled in that with sort of this franchising operation. And that's actually sort of his hunt for a franchisee is sort of similar to this in a lot of ways, at least, in his mind. But you certainly need the expertise, and really, you just need a more robust sort of set of operations.
So, Egan, is the future of Ezell's not the family-friendly chain that we have come to know in Seattle?
It might not be. And I think that it is just something that Louis, in particular, has been willing to accept.
If we're going to pursue the dream of having a nationwide brand, create a legacy brand, then it's going to be important that we let go and let others.
And I think it's sort of coming to reality with making your business successful and viable in a tough restaurant industry. It may not be your corner store, family chicken spot in Seattle. It may start to stray away from that, but it still always has its origin story. And I think the thing with food in particular is it always has the memories attached to it. Like you said at the start, it's something that is tied into times that we recall, where we were, who we ate it with. And I think that won't ever change.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Puget Sound Business Journal reporter Egan Ward, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, and thanks to our generous donors for your financial support. It really makes a difference. Why not take a moment now to rate the show or maybe share it with a friend? It takes less time than enjoying my favorite order from Ezell's. 3-piece spicy dark meat, please, with 2 biscuits and some mac and cheese. Today's episode was produced by Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Andy Hurst. Our production team also includes Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Vaughn Jones, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. Talk to you tonight for Evening Headlines.